we'll have delegates joining in, and we can allow them in as we go by. So thank you everyone for joining in today. My name is Jaideep Singh. I'm the Secretary General of the MUN at Home program at MUN Impact. And I'm here today to present to you our two young student leaders who will be presenting to you today about a very interesting topic, something which has been going around, making the rounds in the past few months as well. And that's about race, culture, and social justice. I am joined by my amazing admin, Ananya. We also have our presenters, Mohammad, Jaski, and Aamna, Asim, who will be presenting to you. They'll introduce themselves, of course. And we also have the brilliant Mr. Newman, who has woken up at 5 in the morning to open this room. That's the level of dedication here we have at MUN Impact. So without any further ado, I'll be opening it up to Aamna and Mohammad. And if Aamna and Mohammad, if you finish your presentation early on, are you willing to take questions?
Yeah.
All right, great. So
that's completely fine.
At the end of the presentation, you can put them on the chat and we will moderate them accordingly. So without any further ado, I'll hand it over to Aamna and Mohammad. Please, all yours.
Thank you. Okay. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter. It was said by Martin Luther King Jr. My name is Mohammad Jaski. Today, Aamna and I are going to raise our voices on the major issue of racial and religious discrimination, a topic which shouldn't have been a humanitarian issue in the first place. No one deserves to feel unaccepted, unvalued, or fearful just because of their race or their beliefs. We are all humans and we should all be able to feel protected and should be treated with equality. In early 1500s, almost 12.5 million Africans were kidnapped from Africa and sent to North and South America through a slave trade transfer. Upon arriving, only 3.9 million Africans survived. Unfortunately, the other 8.6 million Africans died on the way there, as they were treated with no humanity and couldn't survive the rough and the harsh treatment of the sailors. Their bodies were thrown off the ship into the brutal waves of the sea. Now, I won't be talking about the history which got the Africans to North and the South of America. I will be talking about the crucial era which set them free. This era saw a large amount of social change, from abolishment of slavery to the early stages of Industrial Revolution. I'm talking about the 1800s. In the 1800s, America was divided into two, the South and the North. The North was all about industrialization and modernizing the country. However, the South was more into the agricultural aspect, and they were conservative people. Most of the slaves were in the South, as slavery was banned in the North in 1804. There were 4 million slaves living in the South. This was one of the main reasons of the American Civil War in 1861. The Civil War was fought between the North and the South. The tragic war started in 1861 and ended in 1865, when the South surrendered. There were many changes after the war, the main one being the freedom of slaves. In 1863, when President Lincoln wrote the Emancipation Proclamation, which proclaimed to set all the slaves in the South free. Then came the time when the slaves and the Black people were given rights. There were 3 revolutionary amendments made, which were the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. The 13th Amendment freed every single slave in America. The 14th Amendment gave all the Black people citizenship, and the 15th Amendment gave the Black men right to vote. Even though the 13th Amendment made it clear that slavery should not be practiced in the US, it is still relevant to this day. This unfortunately exists, and it doesn't only exist in the US. Sadly, similar tragic events are being seen around the world. For instance, in the Middle East or Arab countries. I'm going to be telling you more about the Arab part of this whole thing after Aamna talks more about South African history.
Just to put into perspective how serious of an issue this is and how widespread of an issue this is, we will be kind of going around the globe and tackling the main countries and the issues that stand out the most. So, for example, I'll be talking about the history in South Africa. And as you all know, South Africa has the history of the apartheid period that was there. And this lasted from almost 1948 to the early 1990s. But this area specifically stands out a lot because this system was imposed in a black majority country by a government that was made up of majorly white people. And this is just something that stands out a lot because it's an African country, majority are black people, and they're still suffering from the aftermath of the apartheid. In the apartheid, it was illegal. It was made illegal for a black person and a white person to sit together. It was made illegal for them to marry into each other's families. It was made illegal for them to even go into the same public spaces. And these racial biases and stereotypes are unfortunately still present in modern day South Africa. And even though they might seem insignificant and pretty small, they do have a lasting effect. For example, it's just that I'll be showing you a video about how some schools have actually banned like natural hair and afro in South African schools. They've banned natural African hair in African schools. Just think about how absurd that is. And this is just a video showing how these students are standing up against that and speaking up against it. So I'll be talking a bit more after you guys see the video. So I'll be playing it right now.
Is your hair political? In South Africa, yes. Here, black African students at one of the country's most prestigious schools have been in protest against their school's hair policy. They allege that teachers put pressure on black students to chemically straighten their hair, more in line with a European appearance, and limited the girls from speaking in local African languages. Local officials have had to intervene as the girls' campaign has forced a global conversation on the politics of Afro hair once again.
5 years ago, this High Court overturned one school's ban on natural hairstyle, cornrows, citing racial discrimination. But Afro hair remains an area of dispute here and wider afield. And there have been high-profile campaigns against rules prohibiting natural hair in the Caribbean and the US.
Aamna is part of a growing natural hair movement that is booming online. It encourages black and mixed race women to wear their hair naturally.
Basically, they would prefer us to do everything that is not from us. They want us to have the straight, long textured hair when most of the time we're not born with the straight hair. So why is it that it's okay for me to have a weave and be accepted at an interview rather than come with my afro? It's not right. And that's why we're taking a stance now, because we want to be accepted just the way we are.
Black women say they've been made to feel that their natural hair is unruly or unsuitable for work, which in the past had made them want to hide it.
My worst nightmare was like my hair would come out of the ponytail so that people would just see my hair out.
Why is it that black hair seems to be such a political issue?
It's not us that's making it political, but the mere fact that you simply allow your hair to grow from your head in its natural form is read as a political act, I think is deeply, deeply significant.
Why is this so political? What is it about our hair that makes you scared of us in an educational environment? Because people are there to learn.
Every single person who works somewhere or studies somewhere has a code that they say is appropriate. What would you say to somebody at home who would say, well, everyone has codes to follow?
So why is the benchmark European hair? And especially if we're talking about this case in South Africa where the majority of the population are of black African descent, why do they have to subscribe to a European standard? Why don't we say, okay, everybody has to come to work or come to school with afro hair?
Would you ever straighten your hair now?
No, I just feel like if I have to straighten my hair because of a job or any type of demand from somebody, I feel like I'm conforming. I feel like I'm not being myself. My hair has always been natural. This is a part of me. This is all I know. So me straightening my hair for somebody else, I feel is losing a part of me because that is not who I am.
Yeah. So that video basically shows you how these people are being forced to compromise their identity, to compromise their culture, to fit into this Eurocentric ideals of beauty that has been imposed in their societies. And it's not only there, it's almost every single country where Black people are living right now. In fact, it was only recently that Los Angeles in the state in USA decriminalized. Passed a law that stated that it's against the law now to discriminate against people for their natural hair. It's only recently that that action was taken, and unfortunately, these issues are prevalent in almost every single country. And now Jaski will be moving on and telling you, like he said, about Middle East and their history in this part.
It's said that the US is the fullest expression of what happens behind the curtains in the Arab world. No less racist than their colonialist and American counterparts. As I said before, racism happens everywhere, and Arab society is no different from that. Looking back at the history, Arab ruled a vast majority of the world. In the past, harems were a common thing. Many rulers and wealthy people had a harem, where many slave girls were kidnapped from their home countries and sold into them. It is evident that women who did not have a very fair skin complexion and women with an African background were trained to safeguard and serve the consorts present in harem and not be part of them, because being dark was looked as an unattractive attribute. And in the pictures as shown, you can see how the white slaves are just sitting and enjoying their time, while the black are serving them, playing music, massaging them, and just using any type of entertainment method just to keep them entertained so that they do not get kicked out of the palaces or more or worse, being killed. Now, Amna will be talking about the present USA.
So I will be circling this back to the 13th Amendment, like Jaski mentioned. It is still very much relevant to this day. As you can see, this is the actual amendment, and it states that neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime. Basically, it means that technically slavery was never fully abolished. It is technically legal if you are imposing it as a form of punishment, which is why you see so many Black people and people of color being incarcerated at such big scale. Even though African Americans barely make up like 13% of the US population, they make up about 70% of the prison population. This is not something that's normal, and it's not something that should be normalized, that actually should be talked about. How in America technically slavery to this day is not abolished, and people are still serving long sentences in prison for non-violent crimes, or not even for actual crimes such as possession of marijuana. They're still serving long sentences for such things, just so these prison systems can incarcerate them and get free labor out of it, which is a whole other issue that I won't be getting into in much detail. I will be talking about another famous and very important part of history in America, which was the Civil Rights Movement, and it basically did rise up from the many cases of police brutality and how Black people are not getting justice from their justice systems and legal systems, much like what's happening today. And the reason I'm going to talk about this is because, as you all know, Martin Luther King was a very important like the face front of this movement. And one thing that he achieved through these protests and speaking up about this issue was the Immigration Act of 1965. So he took this to the Constitution and got it signed. And basically what it allowed was for immigrants to come to America and make a living and like lay down a foundation so they can like grow a business or have a family or invite or like bring their family to here so they can have a better life. This allowed for so many immigrants today to leave their less you can say less convenient lives to get a better better state of living. And it was only through the civil rights movement and the countless protesters that went out was this possible. And this is something that does need to be, acknowledged. And another thing that I would be telling you about is how, even though some people might say that, you know, I'm not racist, I don't think like that. It's not that you, it's, and sometimes it's not that you intentionally try to be that way. It's something that's been ingrained into our brains and our society for so long that it's hard for us to ignore it, or even it's even hard for us to acknowledge it, and it's happening subconsciously. So this video will just put everything, like put some things into perspective and show you what exactly it is like to be a person of color, or more specifically a Black person living in America or any other country that might not be like a Black majority country. Oh, sorry. So basically, this video, I would just like to point a few things out about how it's because he had like a respectable job, was that he was given his like the due respect he deserved. And I want to bring everyone's attention to the people who don't have that luxury, who don't have that luxury of having a luxurious job or a job of such high status. Well, do they not deserve respect? Do they not deserve to be treated like such? This is something that does need to be addressed, and this video does address it. It's not just the simple looks that they get. It's not a small thing. It is a very, very significant thing that does have a lasting effect on people. And moving on, I will be talking about like I'm sure all of you know about the Black Lives Matter movement that's been happening for past couple of months in America. Almost every single state, millions of people have been out on the street protesting against police brutality and how Black people and people of color are being discriminated against by the system, not just the people, by the system, and that needs to change. Like I previously mentioned, as you can see here in this chart, Black people, Hispanic people, and these make up barely 13 and 12% of the US population. But they are still the people who make up like 43% of it, a share of deaths per million people. Why is this so disproportionate? This is not something that you can excuse or you can just ignore or wave off. This is a very serious issue and it has to be addressed. This is in fact a racial issue. And it's such an important issue, and I would just like to take a moment to acknowledge these so many people who were unlawfully killed by the system, and how people like Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Tamir Rice, they were killed for doing absolutely nothing wrong. And And some of them, they were killed for standing in their backyard, going to grocery shopping, being on a phone call in your backyard. And people, and one of them, like you know about Breonna Taylor, the police broke into her house and killed her and murdered her. And it wasn't even a warrant. They didn't even have a warrant. It was something completely unrelated case. So this is something that needs to be addressed, and how these people are losing their lives because the system isn't helping them out, because the people aren't helping them out. And we need to step up and be that change so that they are helped out, so they don't feel like they are a minority or people that should be ignored. Their cries of help need to be heard. So now Jaski will be moving on to what's happening nowadays and how this issue is still prevalent in these countries that are highlighted, the Middle East.
Now back to the present world. Society has made it norm that an ideal and a perfect human being is those who have light skin, straight hair, small nose, ruddy cheeks, and tall skinny bodies. Due to the expectations from the society, many look into products that could potentially be harmful for them, like skin bleaching and implants. Many people fall victim to the social expectations and go through painful and harmful procedures to satisfy themselves and the people around them, just in order to feel more accepted and attractive. Unfortunately, these rapid growing industries don't show how dangerous these beauty enhancement products are, and many are left with permanent damages to their bodies or face life-threatening complications because of it. We live in a world where businesses neglect safety concerns as long as they're able to make profit. Racial discrimination has a huge impact as to why people seek these unsafe beauty products. The hate and the bullying that is being spread because of the fact that not everybody looks the same is ridiculous and is also the leading cause of this. And it is sad that this issue is still a crisis to this day, even when harems are not even relevant, even when the harems have been extinct since the 1800s in the Arab countries. And this is the reality of the world that we live in. I would like to share some stories that happened recently in the Arab world. This is Alam Dichasa. Alam Dichasa's latest case shed light to the horrors that migrant workers are experiencing in Lebanon. Dichasa was an Ethiopian domestic worker who committed suicide at the hands of her Lebanese employers after suffering horrific mental and physical violence. After the brutal beating of her in front of the Ethiopian consulate went viral in 2012. It was later revealed that she was beaten up and abused daily by the employers, and it is also believed that she was living in inhuman conditions. After all this came to surface, an activist made a statement which received public attention and started riots, similar to the ones happening in the US right now. The statement made was as follows: "These women are human beings who, like you, me, and everybody else, like to dance and enjoy life. Unfortunately, in Lebanon, these maids never have the chance to have fun or live." It's not only Dichasa's case. There are hundreds of others cases similar to her, and there is only one thing common in all those cases. The victims were people of color, mainly from Ethiopia. Now, talking about the victims overall in the Arab countries, you will be shocked about how this issue is still so relevant, and it's still so relevant, yet not everyone talks about it. In Sudan, between 1955 to 2005, it is estimated that 4 million Black people were killed or ethnically cleansed. Around 2.5 million people were killed during the Second Sudanese War in attacks widely considered as racially motivated against Black Africans. Another country that has made headlines because of such issues is an African country, Libya. It has been reported that many face racial abuse and discrimination in Libya, including the anti-African racist violence in the year 2000. There have been witnesses that have spoken out and have spoken out on being called names like slave, and an animal, just because of their skin color, which they actually had no choice to choose from. According to an Amnesty International report, Blacks have been massacred for their skin color since the beginning of civil war in 2011. And another country which also made headlines is Algeria. Now, Aamna will be talking more about the Southeast Asian countries, the present world.
Yeah. So this issue, as if you are personally from these countries, you would know that small biases and stereotypes are so prevalent. And even though you might think they're small, they do lead up and build up to a much larger issue. And I will be talking about some of these countries and how these small biases are still very much prevalent and seen in there. So like Jaski talked about, is one of the things that is very much relevant is the skin lightening industry. And not only in the Middle East, but also so much in Southeast Asia. In fact, it's according to World Health Organization study, almost 61% of women use skin lightening products in India. 61% of women. That it's been ingrained into our brains, and through our social media, through advertisements, that somehow our dark skin, it's something that's not desirable or beautiful or not. It should be accepted in society. That if you want to be admired, if you want to be respected, you should fit into those Eurocentric ideals of beauty that have been set by Europeans. And it is something that we need to start to learn how to, we need to start to unlearn these ideals that we have set for ourselves. So just to show you how relevant of an issue this is today, we actually found an advertisement of one of the skin lightening products used in, and this was aired in Pakistan, like I think in 2015. But this is only because we are only showing you this one because it had subtitles. But these kinds of videos and advertisements are still very much relevant today and are still being shown to people. And people still use them even though they are harmful to you medically. So yeah, I'll be showing you this video. Oh, sorry.
इतना हसीन बिल्कुल बेदाग वाकई सो ब्राइट है ना फेस पॉलिश कराइए फेस पॉलिश चेहरे पे इतना निखार कैसे
अब पहली बार फेयर एंड लवली लाया क्रिस्टल ब्राइट ब्यूटी क्रीम इसके खास ब्राइटनिंग क्रिस्टल्स जिल्द की गहराई में जाएं दाग धब्बे हटाएं और दें बेदाग क्रिस्टल जैसा निखार
सिर्फ एक हफ्ते में
फेयर एंड लवली क्रिस्टल ब्राइट ब्यूटी क्रीम.
Okay, so there are like a lot of variations of that ad, and most of the ads that are actually shown to people, they show a woman maybe going to a job interview and she kind of has dark skin, but she's not very confident in herself. But once she applies this cream for a week or so, she gets the light skin and she's so confident in herself all of a sudden, and then she ends up getting the job. It's just some very small things like these that have ingrained into our brains that, you know, because you have dark skin, you won't be respected, you won't get the job that you like, you won't be accepted into society as well. And we really need to start to unlearn these ideals. And in fact, I personally know so many people who have faced these kinds of confrontations. Like even I was once told by a family member that I should apply these kind of one minute, please. That I should apply these kind of things to be just so I can be respected in my school life. And then basically this is a very huge issue because now we might seem to think that these are small incidents, but they do build up to a very big thing. That because we think, oh, we are also people of color, we are brown people, we are not racist, we cannot be discriminatory towards people of other ethnicities and religions and races. But it is true, it is. We ourselves have so much biases into ourselves that it took me a long time to unlearn them myself. And we need to start educating ourselves and our youth and our future generation so we can start working towards a brighter future so people are not discriminated against for such petty reasons. And Jaski will be doing this small kind of game with you guys. So yeah, take it away.
Okay, guys. So firstly, I would request all of you to take out your phones or just any gadgets you can go on Google with. So I will give you like 30 seconds to do that. Okay, that's too much, like 10 seconds. So guys, I would go on Google and search professional hairstyles and look at the images. Take a screenshot of the whole page, not the page, the images basically. And now save it in your gallery. And then again, search something else. Search unprofessional hairstyles. Take a screenshot the same way. Now we can still see how, I just need to wait for Aamna a bit because we need to change the slide. You can see with this game, when Aamna introduced me to this game, I was clueless. I did not have any idea what she's doing. I legit thought that she has lost her mind. That why is she trying to make me do this? And then when I did it, I saw this difference. I saw that professional hairstyles are those with blonde hair and white skin color and girls who are basically blondes. And unprofessional hairstyles, basically girls with dark skin, curly hair, which also, by the way, curly hair, they don't choose to get that. They get it naturally. So they're judged as in they're unprofessional naturally. It's not because they want to be unprofessional, they're unprofessional naturally. And Aamna, would you like to expand on what I said?
Yeah, so these, as you can see, these are different screenshots than what you might have taken. It's because I took these from Pinterest, and just to show you how this is an algorithm that has been set across almost every social media app, not just Google. And I know some of you might be wondering that when you did search it on Google, you didn't exactly get these pictures. It's because it has been brought up a lot of times. So those pictures have also, like those tweets and those criticisms have come up, and the algorithms have been changed a bit, but they haven't changed everywhere else. As you can see, if you search up unprofessional hairstyles, you do get natural black hair. And when you do professional, you get like straight, blonde, or brown, but it has to be straight. It has to be put down, and it's like that. And it's just something that's it might seem very insignificant, but it really, you need to think about how this might be affecting people who do have naturally curly hair, and they're being told that by their natural selves is not deemed professional or worthy of respect. And I will be talking about how this is not only an issue in our beauty industries, but also in our education systems. And this is a video that is by Jane. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting her last name, but she's a very respected educator in America, and she basically talks about here how this thing is ingrained into our education systems as well. So I'm pretty sure most of you have seen this video, but it's still very interesting when you think about it.
We need to stop believing the myth. In this country, what we call education is actually indoctrination. And it takes us from the ages of 5 to the age of 18 to thoroughly indoctrinate people so that they will believe in the myth of white superiority. And it is a myth.
Right.
Now, you can't do that while you're teaching that Columbus discovered America.
Right.
There were black people on this continent 4,000 years before Columbus was born.
Right.
We teach black history in the schools as if it started with slavery. I'm not a white woman. I'm a faded black person. My people move far from the equator. And that's the only reason my skin is lighter. That's all any white person is. Because our great, hey.
Because there's no such thing as race.
race.
There's no such thing as
There's
race.
one race. There's one race, the human race. And then you all came from the same black women 300,000 to 500,000 years ago. The human race began with black women.
So this one basically shows you how it starts from a very early age, that it's not even in America only. In fact, many of our students in our school actually do study American history, and they're taught the same thing, that Columbus discovered America. You can't exactly discover a country where people were already living, where people were already thriving, and they had their whole societies and communities established there. And it just goes to show you how we are being taught since the beginning that our history, our personal history, revolves around Europeans and their successes and their conquests. And it is something that we need to think about, and we need to start thinking and start criticizing our educational systems. And we need to start thinking about how it is affecting our young generation and what they're basically learning. Now, this isn't an issue only in our beauty industries. We have our, like we said, the education industries, and now I'll be showing you how it is a thing in our sports industries as well. So I am pretty sure most of you have seen this picture that was going around a few years ago. And for those of you who don't know, this is Serena Williams, and this was supposed to be a match against Serena Williams and Naomi Osaka. And basically what happened was, like many tennis players do, when Serena lost a point, she smashed her racket and it broke. But the thing is, so many players do that. This is not something that she did out of anger or something. In fact, there's a tennis player, John McEnroe, who is known for his volleying skills and for his confrontation on court, and that frequently landed him in trouble with umpires and the tennis authorities. But he was seen as this kind of a legend who was so passionate about his sport, was so passionate about his career, that he went to such lengths to do this. But when she did it, it was seen as violent, it was seen as unprofessional, it was seen as that she shouldn't be in this position to play at such a high level. And another thing that I would like to point out and leave you guys to think about is her opponent in this picture is shown as a white, blonde lady, even though Naomi Osaka was not that. She was a black Japanese woman. So you can see how they whitewashed her to show you the stark difference between these two. And this is the sport industry. We covered the medical, we covered the education system, we covered our beauty industry. Moving on to our medical industries, you very much have the exact same biases still ingrained into them. As you can see, this is a picture of a medical textbook that was taken from a 2017 edition of this book. And this is basically, it says cultural differences in response to pain. It's basically telling you that just because people have different races and different religions, they have different tolerance of pain. And this is not medically true. It is actually not, but this is like 100 or 50 years ago studies that were conducted, and they're still being used today. At least in America they are. And this is why so many black people have died, because they weren't given the proper dosage of anesthesia, and many things like that. So just to show you how it is an issue in our medical industry, this is a video that will show you, put that into perspective.
The eGFR estimates kidney function by measuring the amount of creatinine that you have in your blood. The higher the amount of creatinine, the worse your kidney function. This equation has a black correction factor of 1.121 because there was a study in 1999 with less than 200 black patients that said black patients just naturally have higher levels of creatinine. This one study, which again had less than 200 black patients in the study, has been used for this formula that's been applied to all black patients over the past 20 years. To qualify for a kidney transplant, you need a GFR of less than 20. So when you use this formula, between a white patient and a black patient with the exact same kidney function, the white patient may qualify for a transplant while the black patient wouldn't. As a consequence, black patients nationwide spend longer times on the transplant waiting list and also have lower access to live donor kidney transplants.
Yeah, so I know it was kind of fast and stuff, but it basically shows you how people of color, and especially black people, are deprived of their medical needs because of a study that was conducted so long ago, and it was never bothered to update it. And things like these are so prevalent nowadays, and it needs to be talked about and addressed. And now Jaski will be talking about something that we call performative activism and how it is not exactly useful to us today.
So I'm not a very coffee person. I don't drink coffee. However, I know a lot of people who do, and this is for them basically. At the moment, Starbucks is expected to become a 28.2 billion company by the end of this year. With the tremendous wealth comes significant power and influence. Yet still, when it comes to Black Lives Matter campaign, the coffee chain company has struggled to find its base. It all escalated earlier June when the company basically fired many workers from wearing t-shirts or necklaces that referred to Black Lives Matter, as it was reported by BuzzFeed. A company memo said that such equipment might be misunderstood or potentially incite violence. The backlash against Starbucks flooded as soon as the Black Lives Matter clothing ban became a public knowledge, thanks to Twitter. Just 2 days after the memo was leaked on Twitter, Starbucks then quickly changed its position on Black Lives Matter. They announced that the staff members will now be allowed to wear clothes and or accessories to help the cause. The company said in a tweet, they said, and I quote, "Wear your t-shirts or Black Lives Matter pin. We are so proud of your sincere determination to help our shared humanity." Now, this tells us how even a big company like Starbucks, who is going to be worth 30 billion in like a year or two, can, when gets criticized, can change its stance on a matter like this. So it actually shows us how much power we hold. And I was just reading through the comments and about like the questions. We have another slideshow for SDGs, and how this issue is related to that. And Aamna would be moving on with it right now.
Yeah. All right. So SDG 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions. You can't have peace and you can't have justice if not every single person, no matter what their race is, no matter what their religion is, no matter where they come from, if not all of them have peace and justice, you cannot possibly have it in the entire world. And again, strong institutions. How can you possibly have strong institutions if there's a whole group of people that are being denied their basic rights, their basic freedoms, their freedom to express themselves, their freedom to healthcare, their freedom to legal rights, their justice, all of it is being denied to them. So how can you possibly have strong institutions if you're depriving whole groups of people of their rights? This is something that does tie into this one SDG and many others, but this is one that directly links to it. And peace, justice, and strong institutions, we can only have this if we talk about our own personal biases, our own personal stereotypes that we hold for other people, and we address them and we unlearn them and we educate ourselves and our future generations. I know this is a very huge issue going on nowadays, and these are some ways that you can help out on a personal level. First of all, we all need to start calling out our friends and family on our biases, because coming since personally, I am from Pakistan. I'm a brown girl, and I have seen so many biases in my own friends, in my own family members, and I have been starting to call out. And I know from personal experience that it's not very comfortable. It's very awkward. It's very, very not nice, but it's worth it if you can be part of the change that the world desperately needs to see. And you can start to donate to charities that need help. Even like $1 or $2, it helps. A small thing goes a long way. And you have seen countless, I'm pretty sure you have seen countless petitions online. I would, if some of you want, I will be willing to email you or sending you any petitions that need help. But these petitions are helpful because they attract political and legal attention. For example, as you know, George Floyd, the only reason that his murderers were held accountable was because petitions of almost 3 million people were signed, and it was taken to the court, and then it was like thoroughly taken care of. And like Jaski said, we have a lot of power. No matter where you're from, you have a lot of power in your hands, and we just don't know about it, and we need to use that power for good. No justice, no peace. And it does tie into the 16th SDG, peace, justice, and strong institutions. And we hope, me and Jaski hope that through this workshop, you guys will realize and start to realize that small biases and stereotypes that we hold in ourselves are not right. And we need to start acknowledging and calling ourselves out on this. And we need to start educating ourselves. So,
just before ending it, there are many more countries and many different and heartbreaking stories with similar reasons as to why people face racial discrimination and abuse. This is why we must speak up about this issue that has been in existence for centuries, and yet not much changes have been put into place to eradicate this unfortunate issue. We live in a world where so many cases do make headlines, like the police brutality in the USA against Blacks and the killing of people of color in the Arab world. The mistreatment and abuse of Black people is happening even in progressive societies, and this is still not the end. This won't end until we bring change and make sure it's implemented. For all we know is we're just making another law that's just going to be there for the sake of it, just like the 13th Amendment the USA made in 1800s. So by that, we end our workshop with no justice, no peace. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you both so much for that workshop. Unfortunately, we are completely out of time, so I don't think we have time for Q&As. But participants, we have to shut this room down now, unfortunately. This has been such a great session, and we hate to shut it down like this. But again, thank you so much to our presenters. This was so wonderful.
We can't have like 1 or 2 questions?
No, unfortunately, we have to shut the room down right away.
All right.
Okay, cool. Thank you guys for this opportunity. Bye.
Wonderful job. Great job. Thank you all for attending. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Bye.